Welcome back to the Panel's Choice. Here we ask each panel member to pick a topic from this week that they feel is important to discuss. We'll start with Jim Hansen. Harvard is among a growing number of schools doing away with objective admissions data such as standardized tests like the SAT. This will give more room for subjective judgments, more power to admissions bureaucrats who can do quotas without people pointing out they may be cheating. Interesting, they also want to do away with grades and make everything extremely subjective.
Well, and they're getting caught at it. That's the problem. It's abundantly obvious that they're trying to do quotas, which are illegal, and they're using any number of ways, which the Supreme Court has kind of been helping them with. They give them hints when they give a ruling. They say, no, you can't say that, but what if you said, you know, historically this or whatever? And they got sued by a collection of Asian students who were basically denied, you know, admission to Harvard and Yale and a number of other schools. When if objective standards had been used, they almost certainly would have been, and in numbers that would have been out of equity. So you would have had too many Asian students, and they didn't want that.
Well, part of what makes these schools so competitive and so desirable is that they, in some cases, actually produce really good quality graduates. But the more they practice this practice, that becomes less and less true because you have really great students who have to go elsewhere. So doesn't this actually, what do they get out of this, I guess is my question.
They get compliance with the woke agenda. And in the woke agenda, the new thing is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which means that you have to have a student body that matches the identity politics classes that are important to the woke left. And so if you don't have that on the output end, they'll change the input end to make sure that that happens. So by meritocratic standards, you know, they don't get the correct percentages of all the groups that they want in Harvard, then they will go ahead and game the system and take away the things that were pointing that out quite obviously. You know, when you say, okay, we had a bunch of Asian students who had massively good grades and obscenely high SAT scores, but they didn't get in. So they were having trouble explaining that. And I can understand the desire to want to have a student body that is representative of America. But it should be representative of Americans who earned that standard, not who were given that, and like you said, who then devalue what Harvard's supposed to stand for.
Right. It's interesting. I think we could be seeing a realignment of education and education values. So thank you for the topic. Next, we have John Heinzpick. John interviewed an attorney with the American Center for Law and Justice, which is representing the Heritage Foundation in opposing the Biden vaccine mandates before the Supreme Court. In this clip from the interview, the ACLJ attorney says the Supreme Court may overturn the Biden vaccine mandates because of a violation of something called the Administrative Procedures Act. Take a look.
I think in its most simplest way of saying is that the failure of utilizing or implementing what they call the rulemaking process.
Have they not done this in this case?
That's correct.
That actually is encouraging to me because we have seen the Supreme Court kind of make different decisions on this. What do you think?
The plot thickens here. The plot thickens, doesn't it? Yes, this all sort of transpired, I think, maybe when people weren't paying attention, just before Christmas, actually. The Sixth Circuit, of course, basically said the mandates, the employer mandates and the CMS mandates with regard to health care workers promulgated by the Biden administration will proceed. They go into effect on the 4th of January, by the way. Sixth Circuit said that just before Christmas. Now the Supreme Court said we're going to take this case up. That's on the 7th. So everybody is taking a look at this and thinking this will be a huge constitutional question that the Supreme Court will suddenly and finally decide, and that's not going to happen. What he was basically saying, this is Ben Cisney, he's a senior counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. They have a case before the court on the 7th. They represent the Heritage Foundation, overturning the Biden mandate. What he's saying is the court will try to, I don't want to say dodge, but they will try to not have a decision which produces a big precedent. So what they will do instead is they will try to look at something like the Administrative Procedures Act, and this is part of their case, and say that the Biden administration simply did not follow the law in implementing this mandate, therefore it's gone. And so it will be kind of a little bit disappointing to a lot of movement conservatives. And people have been watching this vaccine mandate issue saying it's unconstitutional because that question probably will not be settled by this case, though a lot of people who oppose the mandate will probably be satisfied because they will win.
And the oral argument is on the 7th?
On the 7th, yes, that's correct. And they'll probably decide anywhere between a few days and a month after that because they know they've got to get it going, and it is, of course, an emergency hearing.
Okay, very good. Look forward to it. Thank
Yep.
you. Tim brings us this article. Rapid inflation and declining wages are the direct result of the Biden administration's historic spending. All right, tell us about it.
So this is all going back to this Build Back Better, or as I call it, Build Back Broke program that the Biden administration is pushing forward. And man, they are trying to push this down the American people's throats, and they're rejecting this because you've got American families sitting at home trying to figure out how they're going to pay their bills. This Thanksgiving, they were trying to figure out how they were going to pay for groceries and things to cook a good Thanksgiving meal. That prices had skyrocketed, if they could find it on the shelves because of the supply chain issues that we're seeing. So this program is an absolute disaster. And then folks are looking for jobs, and they can't find those jobs because they're not paying enough. And so folks are saying, I'll stay home and continue to collect because Build Back Broke isn't giving us the high-paying jobs that we need to survive. And yeah, it's been a total disaster. And folks are wondering why Joe Manchin isn't voting for it. And he says, well, I can't justify this to West Virginians. The other folks that supported it just didn't care if they could justify it to their constituents. They voted for it on party line. And so this has been a total disaster. I don't think we're talking about it enough and beating the president over the head with it because this is his plan, his program that was supposed to be the great hope.
Well, and it doesn't actually do a lot to either give money to Americans from the magic bank account in the sky, where's
Right.
the money coming from? But it also doesn't empower Americans to work for themselves, to build their own businesses, to economize their own efforts with their business. What value would it add?
It doesn't add any value. It adds zero value to the American worker or the business community. You know, government doesn't create jobs. The business community does. I wrote for Project 21, and I called this program a cancer to the business community. It's absolutely crushing, full of taxes and regulations that are destroying the ability for small business owners to innovate and to create jobs. And it's putting people in a really bad spot to not incentivize them to go to work or to create work for others. And so this has been a total disaster. And it's a novel idea that families are sitting at home trying to balance their budgets and the federal government doesn't have to do that. So
Exactly.
it's been interesting to watch this Broke Back Better program they've got going.
Well, you mentioned that Joe Manchin's not voting for it. Can we hope that it's dead? Is it likely dead? What do you think will happen?
I don't think so. I think that they're going to come back. You see all the pundits and folks saying they're going to go back and talk to Joe Manchin and try to put something in front of him. Hopefully he sticks to his guns and says, hey, I can't justify this thing to folks in West Virginia, and so I'm not going to support it. If not, then we'll see that he doesn't have a spine like some of these other guys that are voting for things just on party line.
All right, thank you for the topic. Last but not least, we've got Derek Hawley's pick. Carjackings, among other violent crimes, have skyrocketed during this pandemic. Why?
Well, I wouldn't say it was just due to the pandemic. And I think that's what the media wants you to believe. However, but carjackings have been on the rise for the last 2 years, particularly this year. And I think it has to go with the whole defunding of the police. Because, and the thing about it, the carjackers are getting even younger. And the attention to this issue was not drawn until last week when Congresswoman, Scalise from Philadelphia was carjacked. And the teenagers, it was 5 of them, with the youngest being a young girl who was 14 years old.
Wow.
And the thing about it is, once this carjacking happened, they're so young, now they're released back to their parents. There's hardly any repercussions. I had a very good conversation with neighboring Prince George's County, one of the white shirts, high-ranking police officers, and he talked about how they can't even hold these individuals, even when they're violent carjackings, because of their age and the laws in terms of what, they just can't hold them on this particular issue. And it's bad here in the district. We had a couple months ago where it was an Uber driver who was killed after they took her car. And so it's on the rise, and it's an unfortunate situation. And the thing about it is the media always pushes this narrative, these teenagers were out joyriding. Joyriding for who? Because I'm sure it wasn't, when you think of a joyride, you think you got the windows down, the sunroof, well, yeah. But the thing about it is, but when that person is held at gunpoint, it's anything but a joyride for them. And it's just a sad situation. I think something has to be done about it.
And this might seem like the obvious, but what is the correlation between defunding the police and carjackings?
There's a direct correlation in that there's not enough officers out there. And the officers don't feel like they're being supported right now. And particularly in Prince George's County, when I had that conversation with the white shirt, he indicated that several of his officers are now leaving the county, going to surrounding counties where they feel like they can get more support, i.e. Charles County, Fairfax County, where they feel that the officers are appreciated just a bit more.
Wow. It also seems to be a bit of a messaging issue, too. The whole defund the police movement seemed kind of sexy and fun and cool.
Cute.
Yeah, it was cute. And then you see the results of it and think,
Cute until it grows out.
Yeah, cute until it grows
Yeah.
out. And it also goes to carjackings and these massive looting that's
Yeah.
going on, too. That's a whole nother issue, but yeah.
whole different topic. Well, thank you very much for the topic. Don't go anywhere. When we come back from the break, we've got Don't Be Fooled and my closing argument. We'll be right back.